Chapter 30. Flom bum, thank you, Mom. An old lady was not what I had in mind. We walked about 3 blocks through crowds of tourists, past shops selling chocolate and moose sausage and little wooden troll souvenirs. You would think anybody descended from Vikings would know better than to create more trolls. As we passed a small grocery store, Mallory grabbed my arm with enough force to leave a bruise. "It's her." She spat the word like a mouthful of poison. "Who?" Sam asked. "Where?" Mallory pointed to a store called Knit Pickers, where tourists were oohing and awing over a sidewalk display of locally produced wool yarn. Norway offered something for everyone. "The lady in white," Mallory said. I spotted the one she meant. In the midst of the crowd stood an old woman with rounded shoulders and a hunched back. Her head craned forward like it was trying to get away from her body. Her white knit sweater was so fuzzy it might have been cotton candy. And cocked on her head was a matching floppy hat that made it hard to see her face. Dangling from one arm was a bag stuffed with yarn and knitting needles. I don't understand what attracted Mallory's attention. I could easily have picked out 10 other folks from a cruise ship who looked stranger. Then the old lady glanced in our direction. Her cloudy white eyes seemed to pierce right through me, as if she'd ninja chucked her knitting needles into my chest. The crowd of tourists shifted, engulfed her, and the feeling passed. I gulped. "Who was—" "Come on," Mallory said. "We can't lose her." She dashed toward the knitting store. Samara and I exchanged a worried look, then followed. A senior citizen dressed in cotton candy shouldn't have been able to hobble very fast, but the lady was already 2 blocks away when we got to Knit Pickers. We ran after her, dodging tour groups, bicyclists, and guys carrying kayaks. Mallory didn't wait for us. By the time Sam and I caught up, she was clinging to a chain-link fence outside a small train depot, cursing as she scanned for her lost prey. "You found the train," I noted. Parked on the platform were a half a dozen brightly painted old-fashioned rail cars. Tourists were piling on board. The tracks wound away from the station and up hills into the ravine beyond. "Where is she?" Mallory muttered. "Who is she?" asked Sam. "There!" Mallory pointed to the last car, where the cotton candy grandma was just getting on board. "We need tickets," Mallory barked. "Quickly!" "We should get the others," Sam said. "We've told them we'd rendezvous." "No time!" Mallory nearly mugged Sam for her Norwegian kroner, currency provided, of course, by the ever-resourceful Alex. With much cursing and hand-waving, Mallory managed to purchase 3 tickets from the station attendant as we bolted through the turnstile and made it aboard the last car, just as the doors were closing. The cabin was hot and stuffy and packed with tourists. As the train rattled up the hillside, I felt queasier than I had since, well, the day before, roasting that dragon heart in Alfheim. It didn't help that I would occasionally catch snippets of bird chatter from outside. Conversations I could still understand, mostly about where one could find the juiciest worms and bugs. "Okay, Mallory, explain," Sam demanded. "Why are we following this old lady?" Mallory slowly made her way up the aisle, checking the faces of the passengers. "She's the woman who got me killed." "She's Loki." Sam almost fell into the old man's lap. "What?" Mallory gave her a quick version of what she told me a few days ago. How she'd set a car bomb, then regretted it, then got a visit from an old woman who convinced her to go back and disarm the bomb using a couple of super useful daggers that turned out to be super useless. Then, kaboom! "But Loki?" Sam asked. "Are you sure?" I understood the anxiety in Sam's voice. She'd been training to fight her dad. But she hadn't expected it to be here. Today, fighting Loki was not a class in which you wanted a pop quiz. "Who else could it be?" Mallory scowled. "She's not here. Let's try another car." "And if we catch him?" I asked. "Or her?" Mallory unsheathed one of her knives. "I told you, that lady got me killed. I intend to return her daggers, points first." In the next car, tourists pressed against the windows, taking pictures of ravines, waterfalls, and quaint villages. Squares of farmland quilted the valley floor. Mountains cast shadows as sharp as sundial needles. Every time the train rounded a bend, the view seemed more scenic than before. Samara and I kept stopping, dumbfounded by the scenery outside, but Mallory had no interest in pretty stuff. The old lady wasn't in the second car, so we moved on. In the next car, halfway up the aisle, Mallory froze. The last 2 rows on the right were arranged in a sort of conversation nook, with 3 backward-facing seats and 3 that faced forward. The rest of the cabin was jammed with people. But that little nook was empty, except for the old lady. She sat facing our direction, humming as she knit, paying no attention to the scenery, or to us. A low growl started in Mallory's throat. "Hold on," Sam grabbed her wrist. "There are a lot of mortals on this train. Can we at least confirm that this lady is Loki before we start killing and destroying?" If I had tried to make that argument, I imagined Mallory would have hilt-bashed me in the groin. Since it was Sam asking, Mallory sheathed her dagger. "Fine," she snapped. "We'll try to talk to her first. Then I'll kill her. Happy?" Delirious. That didn't describe my mood. Jumpy and confuzzled, it came closer. But I followed the girls as they approached the old lady in white. Without looking up from her knitting, she said, "Hello, my dears. Please sit." Her voice surprised me. It sounded young and beautiful, like a radio announcer on a wartime propaganda station trying to convince enemy soldiers that she was on their side. Norway Nancy? Maybe? Or Flom Flo? Her face was hard to see, and not just because of the floppy hat. Her features glowed with a white light as fuzzy as her sweater. She seemed to be every age at once. A little girl, a teenager, a young lady, an old grandmother, all the faces existing in the present, like the layers of a transparent onion. Maybe she hadn't been able to decide which glamour to wear today, so she had just worn them all. I glanced at my friends. We took a silent vote. "Sit?" I asked. "Kill?" Mallory asked. "Sit," Sam ordered. We edged to the 3 seats across from the old lady. I kept one eye on her knitting needle, waiting for her to bust out some dual-wielding moves, but she just kept working on her white, fuzzy yarn, making what looked like a cotton candy scarf. "Well," Mallory snapped, "what do you want?" The old lady clucked disapprovingly. "My dear, is that any way to treat me?" "I should treat you worse, Loki," Mallory growled. "You got me killed." "Mallory," Sam said, "this isn't Loki." The relief was obvious in her voice. I wasn't sure how Sam knew, but I hoped she was right. There wasn't room in this train car to wield a blazing spear of light or a singing broadsword. Mallory's face mottled red. "What do you mean, not Loki?" "Mallory Audrey Keene," said the old woman. "Do you really think after all these years I was Loki? For shame. Few beings in the 9 worlds hate Loki as much as I do." I considered that good news, but when I met Sam's eyes, I could tell she had the same question I did. "Audrey?" Mallory shifted, her hands on the hilts of her daggers like she was a downhill skier approaching a difficult jump. "You were there in Belfast," she insisted, "in 1972. You gave me these useless knives and said I should run back and disarm the bomb on that school bus." Sam caught her breath. "School bus? You targeted a school bus?" Mallory did her best to avoid her eyes. Her face was the color of cherry juice. "Don't be too hard on her," said the old lady. "She was told the bus would be full of soldiers, not children. It was July 21st. The Irish Republican Army was planting bombs all across Belfast against the British. Retaliation for retaliation, as it usually goes. Mallory's friends wanted in on the action." "2 of my friends had been shot by the police the month before," Mallory murmured. "They were 15 and 16. I wanted revenge." She glanced up. "But Loki was one of our lads in our gang that day. He must have been. I heard his voice then, taunting me in my dreams. I know how his power can tug." "Oh, yes," the old lady continued to knit. "And you hear his voice right now?" Mallory blinked. I suppose not." The old lady smiled. "You're correct, my dear. Loki was there that Friday in July, disguised as one of you, egging you on to see how much mischief he could create. You were the angriest of the bunch, Mallory, the doer, the talker. He knew just how to manipulate you." Mallory stared at the floorboards. She swayed with the rattling of the train. Behind us, tourists gasped with delight every time a new vista came into view. Ma'am?" I didn't usually insert myself into conversations with creepy, godly ladies, but I felt bad for Mallory. No matter what she'd done in her past, she seemed to be shrinking under the woman's words. I remembered that feeling well from my most recent dream with Loki. "If you're not Loki," I said, "which is great, by the way, Then who are you? Mallory said you were there too, the day she died. After she set the bomb, you appeared and told her. The intensity of the woman's gaze pinned me to my seat. Within her white irises, gold pupils glowed like tiny suns. I told Mallory what she already expected. The woman said that the bus would be full of children and that she had been used. I encouraged her to follow her conscience. You got me killed, Mallory said. I urged you to become a hero. The woman said calmly, and you did. Around 20 other bombs went off in Belfast on July 21st, 1972. It became known as Bloody Friday. How much worse would it have been if you hadn't acted? Mallory scowled. But the knives, they were my gifts to you, said the woman, so you would die with blades in your hands and go to Valhalla. I suspected they would be useful to you someday, but... Someday? Mallory demanded. You might have mentioned that part before I got myself blown up trying to cut bomb wires with them. The woman's frown seemed to ripple outward through her layers of ages. The little girl, the young woman, the crone. My powers of prophecy are short range, Mallory. I can only see what will happen within 24 hours, give or take. That's why I'm here. You'll need those knives. Today. Sam sat forward. You mean to help us retrieve Kvasir's mead? The woman nodded. You have good instincts, Samra al-Babas. The knives... Why should we listen to you? Mallory blurted out. Whatever you tell us to do, it'll probably get us killed. The woman laid her knitting needles across her lap. My dear, I am the goddess of foresight and the immediate future. I would never tell you what to do. I am only here to give you the information you need to make a good choice. As to why you should listen to me, I hope you would do so because I love you. Love me? Mallory looked at us in disbelief. Are you hearing this? Old woman, I don't even know who you are. Of course you do, dear. The woman's form shimmered. Before us sat a middle-aged woman of regal beauty. Her long hair, the same color as Mallory's, plaited down both shoulders. Her hat became a war helm of white metal, glowing and flickering like trapped neon gas. Her white dress seemed to be made of the same stuff, only woven into gentle folds. In her knitting bag, her fuzzy yarn had become swirling puffs of mist. The goddess, I realized, had been knitting with clouds. I am Frigg, she said, queen of the Aesir, and I am your mother, Mallory Keene.